Before we begin, I want to take a moment to honor the cultures behind the stories we are about to explore. The tales shared here come from many peoples, lands, and traditions. I do not change these stories to fit modern expectations or to align with today's social standards. Instead, I present them as they were told, sometimes beautiful, sometimes harsh, sometimes challenging. We are not here to judge the past, but to understand it, to listen, to learn, and to honor the ancestors who carried these stories forward. We also share stories from various religious traditions. These are presented in their historical and spiritual context, with respect for their beliefs that they represent. Every culture deserves respect, context, and acknowledgement, and this space is dedicated to doing exactly that. Story 1: Persephone, the return that divides two worlds. Within the mythological traditions of ancient Greece, the story of Persephone presents one of the most enduring accounts of return and transformation, illustrating that crossing into another realm does not simply end upon return, but permanently alters one's place within the world. And Persephone, the daughter of Demeter, goddess of agriculture and fertility, is initially associated with life, growth, in the surface world, existing within a state of continuity and innocence, until her abduction by Hades, ruler of the underworld, who takes her into his domain, a realm defined not only by death, but by separation from the cycles of the living world. This descent is not entered by choice, and within the underworld, Persephone becomes exposed to a different order of existence, one governed by stillness, permanence, and the absence of seasonal change. And while she remains there, Demeter's grief causes the earth itself to become barren, halting growth and disrupting the balance between life and death, demonstrating that Persephone's absence has consequences not only for herself, but for the entire world. Eventually, a negotiation is established, allowing Persephone to return to the surface. But this return is not unconditional, as she has consumed pomegranate seeds, a symbolic act that binds her to the underworld. And this condition prevents her from fully separating from the realm she entered, requiring that she divide her time between the two worlds, spending part of the year with Hades and part with Demeter, creating the cyclical pattern of the seasons, where her return to the surface brings growth and fertility, and her descent corresponds with decline and dormancy. This arrangement establishes that Persephone is no longer solely a figure of the living world, but a being who exists between realms, embodying both life and death, and her identity is fundamentally altered by her experience, as she is no longer the same figure who was taken, but one who carries the knowledge and presence of the underworld within her, even while she walks the surface. Her return, therefore, does not restore the original state of things, but creates a new structure in which change is permanent and cyclical, reflecting a broader understanding within Greek cosmology that movement between worlds is not reversible in the sense of returning to what was before, but instead results in a reconfiguration of identity and existence. Persephone's role evolves from that of a passive figure to one of authority within the underworld, often referred to as its queen, indicating that her time there is not merely endured, but integrated into who she becomes. And this dual existence reinforces the idea that crossing into another realm creates a lasting connection that cannot be undone, only balance. This story therefore illustrates that return is not a restoration, but a transformation, and that what is carried back from another world becomes part of the individual, influencing not only their identity, but the structure of the world around them, demonstrating that some experiences create a division that must be lived with rather than resolved, and that the act of returning does not erase what was encountered, but ensures that it continues to exist within the one who has crossed, marking them as someone who belongs, in part, to more than one world. Story 2: The Dreaming, Returning from the Timeless Realm. Within the spiritual traditions of Aboriginal Australia cultures, the concept often referred to in English as the dreaming or dream time represents a foundational understanding of reality that exists beyond linear time, describing a state in which ancestral beings shaped the land, established law, and continued to exist in a parallel dimension that is not separate from the present, but interwoven with it. And unlike Western notions of past and present, the dreaming is not a distant era, but an ongoing reality that can be assessed under certain conditions, particularly through ceremony, story, and deep connection to country, meaning the land and its living presence. Within many traditional accounts, individuals may enter into the dreaming through sleep, vision, or ritual engagement, experiencing encounters with ancestral beings, landscapes that are both familiar and transformed, and knowledge that is not obtained through ordinary means. And while within this state, the experience is not perceived as separate from reality, but as an extension of it, where time does not move in a linear progression, but exists simultaneously, allowing past, present, and future to coexist. Those who return from such experiences often do not come back unchanged, as the knowledge, presence, or connection they have encountered becomes part of their ongoing life, influencing their understanding of themselves, their responsibilities, and their relationship to the world around them. And in many traditions, these experiences are not interpreted as personal events alone, but as interactions within a broader system of law and meaning that must be respected and integrated, reinforcing the idea that entry into the dreaming carries responsibility upon return. The concept of return itself within this framework differs from other mythological traditions, as the dreaming is not a separate place that one leaves and then comes back from, but a layer of reality that one moves into and out of, meaning that the individual does not fully exit the dreaming upon return, but continues to exist in relation to it, carrying its influence into everyday life. This reflects a broader understanding that the boundaries between worlds are not fixed, but permeable, and that individuals who have accessed deeper levels of reality are altered in their perception, no longer experiencing the world solely through ordinary time and space, but through an expanded awareness that includes the presence of the ancestral and the unseen. These experiences are often carefully contextualized within cultural frameworks that guide how the knowledge is shared, interpreted, and applied, ensuring that what is gained is not misused or misunderstood, and emphasizing that the return from the dreaming is not a conclusion, but a continuation of relationship with the forces encountered. The dreaming therefore represents a form of return that is not about re-entering the same world unchanged, but about carrying a different understanding into that world, demonstrating that crossing into deeper layers of reality transforms not only perception, but identity and responsibility, and that what is encountered within the unseen does not remain there, but continues to shape the one who has experienced it, reinforcing the lesson that returning does not restore the previous state, but creates a new way of being within the same world. Story 3. Vasilisa, the Return with Fire. Within the folklore traditions of Eastern Europe, particularly among Slavic cultures, the tale of Vasilisa presents a powerful account of passage into the unknown and the transformation that follows upon return, illustrating that those who cross into the domain of the unseen do not come back as they were. Vasilisa, often described as a young girl living under the control of a cruel stepmother and stepsisters after the death of her own mother, was given a small doll by her mother before her passing, an object imbued with protective guidance, which she is instructed to feed and care for, and which, in turn, offers her advice and assistance, representing an internalized form of wisdom that accompanies her through hardship. When the household runs out of fire, the stepmother sends Vasilisa into the forest to seek it from Baba Yaga, a powerful and ambiguous figure who resides in a hut that stands on chicken legs, surrounded by offensive bones, marking her domain as one that exists outside ordinary human space. And entering this space is not a simple journey, but a crossing into a realm governed by different rules, where time, behavior, and consequence operate under unfamiliar conditions. Upon arriving, Vasilisa is not immediately granted what she seeks, but is instead required to complete a series of tasks set by Baba Yaga, including sorting grains and maintaining the household tasks that appear simple but are structured in a way that tests her attention, patience, and alignment with the unseen guidance provided by the doll. And through listening to this guidance and acting with precision rather than force, she successfully completes each requirement, demonstrating that survival within this realm depends not on strength, but on the ability to engage correctly with its conditions. Baba Yaga, observing Vasilisa's success, does not harm her, but instead grants her a skull lantern, a flaming skull that serves as both the fire she was sent to retrieve and a symbol of the knowledge and transformation she has undergone. And upon returning home, this fire does not simply restore the household, but consumes the stepmother and stepsisters, eliminating the oppressive forces that once controlled Vasilisa's life, indicating that what she brings back from the other realm carries power that reshapes her reality. Vasilisa herself is no longer the same individual who was sent into the forest, as she returns with both the external symbol of fire and the internal integration of the guidance she followed, marking her transition from a passive figure into one capable of navigating and influencing her own life. This narrative reflects a broader Slavic understanding that entering the domain of figures like Baba Yaga is not merely a test to be survived, but a process of transformation, where the individual must engage with the unknown in a way that changes their relationship to themselves and their environment, and that returning from such a crossing brings with it consequences that extend beyond the individual experience, altering the structure of their life moving forward. Vasilisa's return therefore demonstrates that crossing into the unseen is not without effect, and that what is gained within that space becomes part of the individual upon re-entry, reinforcing the principle that return is not a restoration of the previous state, but the beginning of a new one shaped by what has been encountered, showing that those who pass through the threshold and return carry with them something that cannot be undone, only integrated. Story 4. The Hero Twins, The Return from Xibalba. Within the sacred narrative of the Quiche Maya, preserved in the Popol Vuh, the journey of the hero twins, Hunahpu and Xibalba, presents one of the most complete expressions of descent, transformation, and return, illustrating that crossing into the underworld is not an end, but a process that fundamentally alters those who pass through it. And the twins enter Xibalba, the underworld ruled by the lords of death, not by accident, but through summons, following the fate of their father, who had been defeated there. And from the moment they begin their descent, they encounter a realm structured by trials designed to confuse, test, and ultimately destroy those who do not understand its nature. Unlike those who came before them, the hero twins do not confront these challenges through force, but through awareness, recognizing deception where it appears and responding with strategy rather than reaction, allowing them to pass through the various houses of trial, including the House of Darkness, the House of Jaguars, and the House of Bats, each of which represents a different aspect of fear and perception. However, their journey reaches its most significant point when they allow themselves to be captured and killed, entering fully into death within the underworld itself, a moment that represents not failure, but the completion of their descent. As they move beyond survival and into transformation, through their understanding of the structure of Xibalba, they return from death, first in disguised forms, performing acts that demonstrate resurrection and ultimately revealing their true identities, using the same principles that govern their trials to defeat the lords of death, breaking the cycle that had previously claimed their father. Their return is not a simple re-entry into the world as it was before, but a transition into a new state of being, as they ascend and become associated with celestial bodies, often interpreted as the sun and the moon, marking a shift from human existence into cosmic roles. And this transformation reflects the broader Maya understanding that the underworld is not merely a place of endings, but a domain of change, where those who pass through it are altered in ways that extend beyond their original identity. The human twins therefore do not return as the same figures who entered Xibalba, but as beings who carry the knowledge and power of both worlds, demonstrating that the act of crossing into and returning from the unseen results in a permanent redefinition of what one is, rather than a restoration of what one was. And this narrative reinforces the principle that transformation through passage is not reversible, and that those who successfully navigate the unseen do not simply come back, but emerge as something different, showing that return is not the conclusion of the journey, but the moment where its effects become fully visible.